Okay, let's, if you start looking at the real estate market, it's chaos, and it seems to ebb and flow every day. What do you guys see here in the local market that I guess gives a little bit of clarity to listeners?
Well, I think this last week I saw, at least in the market that I specialize in Snoqualmie Ridge, that sellers are finally getting the message that inventory is low, and now is a great time to sell the house. We had 14 new listings come on in 1 week, which almost doubled our inventory levels. So
wow.
Sellers are hearing that message, and the buyers are out there waiting for them.
When you start looking at sellers hearing that message now, for the last, 8 months, for a year, we've been saying, great time to sell, interest rates are low. And then interest rates start going up. Do you think that has also propelled people to sell? Like, wait a minute, now the buyers may be backing out. And so where we had discussed before, a frenzy of buyers may be coming on the market because of higher interest rates and people being afraid they could keep going up. Now do you have sellers maybe jumping in going, wait, I hope I don't miss the perfect time?
Definitely, but also most of those sellers want to be buyers. So now they have the concern that they're going to miss out on those great interest rates themselves. So
it's amazing the driving factor of fear of missing out. Nobody takes advantage of it when everything's all set up. It's once it starts going awry, everybody jumps in.
Right.
So what are some of the reasons, I guess, is that the biggest reason people are starting to list their house more is because they are buyers and now they're fearful?
I don't know that it's fear as much driving it as you start to, as prices increase. I mean, that if you have a seller, let's say, who bought in 2007, 2008, I think they sort of thought, I'm in this house for the long haul. I'm not going to be able to sell it for 15 years. And lo and behold, 6 months into the year, they move into that threshold where they can sell. Mm-hmm. So it starts that conversation, in any household where, we thought it was going to be 5-10 years before we could sell. Now we can move to that bigger house. Mm-hmm. And certainly interest rates play a huge part of that too. Now when interest rates are low still, this is a good time to jump.
Are different pockets, we've talked a lot about pockets in different areas. You brought up Snoqualmie Ridge, Bridget. Are different pockets reacting differently to current market conditions, different neighborhoods?
Yes, we see that all over the east side as far as multiple offers happening within hours to, places like Snoqualmie Ridge, you might get multiple offers, but it might be 3 or 4 days into it. So the sense of urgency definitely is happening more, I think, closer into the city. And the further out you get, there's not quite the sense of urgency because the number of buyers is just a little less.
So do you see people starting to expand from the core and starting to move a little bit further out? I mean, we talked about that 2 months ago, about that's kind of the next thing that has to happen. Prices come back in Bellevue, they come back in Kirkland, they come back in the core of Seattle, and now all of a sudden people start balancing the cost of those houses versus commute.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's we do see that as in the outlying areas, but those are also the first areas that will contract as well. So, and that's something we're watching closely as interest rates rise. We're hopeful that it'll come out into those outlying areas, but at the same time, those are the first to contract as well.
You're saying there's more volatility in some of these outlying areas than maybe in the core.
Yes, they don't go up quite as quickly, though. I mean, as you saw, Bellevue, it just seemed like overnight prices were increasing, multiple offers were happening. Where the further out you get, that's a slower. It takes a little bit longer to happen. So therefore, you don't have quite as much of a up and down with the price levels. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're not quite as big of a risk as you might face, because you'll see multiple offers happening closer into the city where one house might bring $50,000 over asking price. Therefore, true market value is kind of, questionable maybe in some areas. And outside the areas, you might only see this house selling for $5,000 to $10,000 over asking price.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I remember tracking all the house prices all across the country. And like North Dakota, well, granted, now it's all different because of all the new oil industries out there. But even before the oil industry kind of moved out there, it's like North Dakota down 1%. That was their big housing crash, or Wyoming down 3%. And there's just less, I guess there's less demand and less people moving in and out, less transient people, I suppose. Do you tend to see that happening similarly in outskirts of Seattle?
I think people move around for all different reasons all the time. We have a lot of relocation people all around the east side. But what we tend to see is when the market was down, people who were living outside a little further away decided it was a great opportunity for them now to move into the city and to get rid of their commute. And now the people that are relocating here maybe cannot touch the housing markets closer into the Bellevue market. So they're the ones now looking further out.
And they've never sat in traffic before.
Exactly.
Around here. They're like, oh, it's, in Seattle, everybody measures everything by minutes. Nobody says miles. That's the new thing, right? Nobody says, oh, it's 5 miles. It's about 20 minutes away.
So true.
Yeah. So
Right.
I guess, when people see on the map from California or wherever they're from, I guess a lot of people are coming from all over. Oh, Amazon, it's like 6 miles. They don't realize that 6 miles can mean 45 minutes in the wrong conditions. Bridget Franklin and Darin Robertson join me from Thomas L. Macy. So in this market, with everything that's going on, you guys decided to start a company that is a little bit different, kind of has a different approach than other companies, and really kind of, in some ways, spits in the face of a traditional real estate broker. Tell us a little bit about it and why.
Well, spitting in the face is a little harsh. I wouldn't say that.
In some ways,
I would
when
say
it comes to pricing, in some ways.
Well, certainly I would say it's a long time coming. It's I spent years at John L. Scott in Windermere, and during those times back in late 90s, there was a significant marketing expense. The internet was just sort of coming into play in the real estate world. But at the same time, as a real estate broker, there was an investment in so many different areas. If you were to look at sort of a pie chart, you would be investing in your open houses, you would be investing in mailers, and you were really working to get real estate brokers in the house, to get buyers in the house. And you would reserve a chunk of money for each
just
area.
To market a house.
Just to market one house. So
what was in that pie chart before we get moving forward? But what was in that pie chart? I mean, you talk about
direct mail.
Okay.
There were open house invitations. There was a broker's open.
There was print, public.
Yeah, magazines were big. Remember Homes and Land magazine?
Sure. It's like
the
6 pages now.
Sure, right. Yeah, I didn't even know it still exists today. But at the same time, newspaper ads, that was big. And depending on how many newspaper ads were you going to place, would you do it weekly and on the weekends, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Versus now, it is the cost is significantly less to market a house. It doesn't cost 6% to sell a house. And so as such, we recognize that trend. But at the same time, the consumer still wants a full service experience. They want that experienced agent, knows what they're doing. They know the market. They're good negotiators. They're being trained by their companies. Those aspects of a real estate company they still want. But on for example, let's say a $500,000 house, why is it going to cost us an extra $10,000 versus our 4% model where you're going to save that $10,000? And
so let's get clear on that though. So 4% model basically as a seller, typically you would pay 6%, which is typically split 3 and 3 between a buying and a selling real estate agent. Traditionally, the brokerages charge a 6% commission. And now what you guys are going through is look, selling a house is not nearly the expense it used to be, and there's less risk. I mean, in some ways, the pie chart has shrunk to put it online.
Correct.
Especially in this market, right? Okay, fill out the form, put it online, and that can now garnish 25 offers overnight.
Right.
And so in some ways, you're saying, hey, look, our costs have shrunk, and now you have the ability to pass it on to the consumer being someone who's looking to sell their house.
So we can do the 1% listing, but we still pay the selling agent 3%. So the selling agent is not getting any different pay by selling one of our listings. We're the ones who are adjusting our expenses and our income by listing for 1%. And we saw the need to do this when the market was slow because people needed more equity out of their house. And now when homes are selling within a weekend, it even makes more sense to do it. So the 1% model is a very reasonable model whenever it comes to a buyer's market or a seller's market.
Now you talk about full service being, the people wanting full service, whether they're paying, I suppose, let's just stick with 1% or 3% to the agent who is selling their home. what is full service and what should somebody expect? And I guess if you were to maybe think of where could things drop off, or where might somebody think it could drop off if they're paying less? Because a lot of people consider they get what they pay for.
Sure. Well, in terms of what full service looks like is there are some traditional aspects of real estate that haven't changed. Obviously, getting your house ready for the market, getting that perspective from a real estate professional. What do I need to do to get the house ready? Mm-hmm. It's taking those steps to get you started, to take the time with you up front to begin getting the house ready. With our company, we also have professional home stagers who will come in, work with our clients, and really spend that time to get the house prepared for the market. Professional photography. We have a professional photographer who comes in, photographs the house, because obviously, it's the internet that is where the house is truly being showcased, and we want it to be
nobody's not in the newspaper anymore,
right? Exactly.
Right? Or homes and land.
Yeah.
I mean, really, those things have gone so by the wayside.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so really, those traditional aspects haven't changed, and sellers we do it, and they should expect to have that as well. Over and above that, it really is that there's a lot of traditional, there obviously open houses still big part of real estate. But real estate, internet syndication, and it's that piece. It's
which going back a few years made it. I remember. People give a presentation. Oh, we're going to syndicate it across all these things, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be on every website in the world, and you'd show them all, and a seller would think, oh my goodness, like they're going to do so much work. It's like a plug-in right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in some ways. So it makes sense that it's not like you're listing on 47 different websites. You click a few things up, click here, boom, and it is syndicated, as you say.
Right, and that's been the great equalizer in real estate. That's what's changed the landscape of real estate is that it is a level playing field. So if you could be listed with TitanicRealEstate.com or momandpop.com, you still have virtually the same syndication and still reach the same buyer pool.
And that is, I guess, why, because technology is what allows you guys to really create this full service experience and not charge as much money simply because the amount of work isn't there. Is that fair to say?
It's not the amount of work, it's the amount of investment.
Yeah.
And so the work is still there. It's the
actual cash out of pocket.
It's the cash out of pocket that is not required as much as it was back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that is really something that a lot of retail stores have come to understand. When you go to Walmart, right? And, I'm not a big fan of Walmart. But, there are companies out there, and they get their manufacturing done a little bit less expensive. And they pass it on their consumer. You really see it everywhere. It's not Walmart. It's Amazon. The prices of most things, as you would see them, start to come down because manufacturing gets cheaper. In real estate, the business that you are in, that we're in, you end up having your outgoing costs be less expensive, and now you're passing that on to the consumer without necessarily giving away quality.
Correct. We like to say that we're redefining real estate. One of the things, too, that I really consider as part of our full service is our agents. Our agents are fully trained agents. They're not just, pass their license and now sent out to do a listing presentation. So everything from the material that we put out to them is professionally designed. Our agents go through a intensive 8-week training process with us. They're just given all the tools that they need so that whenever they're speaking on other agents for your behalf, that they know what they're talking about. When they're negotiating and writing contracts, that these are going to be legally binding contracts on your behalf. And so that's part of the full service experience, too, is getting someone who is educated beyond just having a license.